Hey, it's Big Guy Ben here at Wally's Castle, 3637 Clyde Park Avenue, Wyoming, Michigan. It's December 2023. I'm going to take a showcase tour of the mall. Here in the bingo hall, vendor 6264, you can see an assortment of vintage to modern jewelry. Here's 2030. They have an assortment of coins and silver bars in their showcase. Coming around the corner, we're up to 2117. You see an assortment of the Squishmallows, the video games and toys. Their booth is actually right behind the showcase here. As we make the curve, we're at 5185. Big into the Hot Wheels and some of the Matchbox cars. Next is vendor 2080, Catnip Hill. It's an assortment of the vintage soda bottles, the tins. Vendor 131, you can see the sports collectibles and memorabilia. Vendor 8002, this is vintage Christmas to modern. You see some of the trinket boxes, the shiny bright ornaments, and assortment of watches. Vendor 16 here, more knickknacks, dolls. Vendor 2109, Funko Pops, more Hot Wheels, action figure toys. Some of the promo cars there on the second shelf, the Star Wars toys. Vendor 1964, you can see some of the jewelry, the knives, DVDs, the camouflage gear. Vendor 666, this is their stone and crystal case. A bunch of the spears, the polished points. Vendor 127, you can see some of the Fenton glassware and glass figures on the top, along with the figurines on the second shelf. Barbies on the bottom shelf there. Vendor 379, you see some of the jadeite, the figurines, the Monster High dolls. Vendor 66, Love Vintage. This is their Pyrex case. They also have a booth here in our mall. Beautiful vintage sets of Pyrex. Next is vendor 33 and their tobacco showcase. Vintage cigarettes, the vintage tins. Vendor 17, this is their showcase here in the bingo hall at Wally's Castle. This is vendor 747, Swell Times, assortment of modern jewelry and rings. Vendor 5149, you can see assortment of pins, watches, pocket watches, knives. Vendor 20, up next. Under 2117, you can see the VHS, the DVDs, the Star Wars and other action figures in their case. 5124, they have sports cards, vintage video games. This is going to be vendor 33. You see some of the brass figurines, the trucks, the vintage planes. Next up is Sebastian Hits Showcase. You see the top shelves full of vintage era VHS tapes, along with the second shelf down. Bottom shelves you'll see AEW and WWE wrestling action figures. This is Ray Joy's vintage showcase here in the bingo hall. Great assortment of vintage glass. Coning's Collectibles case here. It's one of the 3 showcases they have at the mall. See the Fenton shoes, the uranium glass, the tire ashtrays on the bottom. This is vendor 131's second showcase here. You can see more of the pop culture items they have in. The Coca-Cola collectibles, the figurines. Next 2 showcases are vendor 65. This is Rose's showcase. See some of the cat figurines on the top shelf there, the glass paperweights on the next shelf down, along with the Bakelite hair accessories. Her second showcase has more of glassware with the baskets on the top shelf and an assortment of figurines and glassware on the bottom shelves. As we round the corner, we're at vendor 1422 showcase. See some of the Hot Wheels, the toy collectibles, the vintage items in their case here. Next up is vendor 44, Worth of Peak Treasures. You'll see the miniature shoes. You'll see jewelry on the third shelf there. Next up is 5124. You see the modern Ghostbuster action figures on the top shelf. The modern era Star Wars figures on the next shelf down, along with an assortment of toys. Next up is 2135, Fantastic Finds. You can see some of the bar glasses, the jewelry, the watches they have in their showcase here. Next up is 154. You can see an assortment of vintage pipes and US coins and currency in their showcase. Next up, vendor 33. This is going to be more assortment of vintage to modern costume jewelry. Next up is vendor 2016 and her handmade chakra. You'll see some of the crystals and stones that she has in her showcase. Next up is vendor 78, Dig Dug, in his showcase. You'll see that beautiful Griswold waffle maker on the middle shelf there. An assortment of pop culture and toys, lunch boxes, beer steins. Next up is vendor 148. You see a lot of miniatures and smalls along with glassware in her showcase. This is vendor 2007. You see a lot of the Jim Beam decanters from the 70s in their showcase. Next vendor is 3200, Fancy Nancy on 6th showcase. You see some of the jewelry on the second to the top shelf. See the cup and saucers and the tea sets on the third shelf there. This is vendor 4051. Another assortment of collectibles, the figurines in their showcase. Some vintage dolls, the thermoses on the bottom. Here we're at vendor 33 showcase. This is the video game showcase. Everything from the original Nintendo up to the PS4 and Xbox One. See some Atari there. This is vendor 33's figurine showcase. You can see some of the pewter figures, the stone figures, some of the glassware. Here you'll see Looney Tunes. You see some of the doll furniture, the marks in the original boxes, the Disney pins, the old school punch boards, the wrestling figures. This is vendor 66's second showcase with her glassware. You see some of the amberinas, the ambers, the greens, the cobalt, and the blues. Assortment of vases in there. This is vendor 666 Oddities showcase. You can see some of their creations that they have on the top shelf with the squirrels and the ducks. You'll see the tarot cards and the Buddha figurines. This is vendor 34 showcase, Toy Riot. From 80s to modern era toys, an assortment of Marvel, DC. See the Power Rangers there. Mix of toys. See vendor 1028 here. This is another one of our Odyssey showcases. And this is one of our new vendors here. You'll see new jewelry and new purses in their showcase. As we make our way to the front of the mall, this is vendor 7. This is Wally showcases. See an assortment of trucks here on the top shelf. The Winross on the second shelf there. The vintage antique liquor bottles on the bottom shelves. See some of the Tonka and Structo on the top shelf here of the second showcase, along with the sci-fi tin space toys, the vintage Valentines. See some of the coins and currency on that shelf, along with the vintage cigarettes down there.